Hey, what's up guys? Jackson here at Toasted DIY, and today we're going to be going over the differences between a riding mower, a zero turn, and a lawn tractor or compact utility tractor. Let's get right into it. So this video is going to be for really just anyone who wants to upgrade from a standard push mower, or maybe they're starting a business of some sort and needs some more equipment that can do really big heavy lifting and other work like that. Or maybe you're on a farm and you need a giant lawn tractor with a bush hog, you know, that's 72 inches or more in terms of cutting width. This video is going to kind of just cover everything you need to know as far as new and used pricing on stuff and what exactly are each of these actually good for. So let's go ahead and get acquainted to each of these and go from there. And funny enough, I actually have them in order from least expensive to most expensive, and you'll kind of see there's a common trend and they kind of make sense too on expense. But so this right here is a 1988 John Deere Hydro 165, just a pretty standard ride-on lawnmower. This one I believe has a 36-inch Excel deck that has two blades on it, and this one is really not a bad mower at all, but it is older, so it's not going to make a big difference in this video because in terms of its form and function, it's going to work about the same. The only difference between newer units is obviously they're going to look a lot nicer, and they're going to have usually a go pedal and a reverse pedal or a brake. This is just an e-brake, and then you actually use this lever right here, which most of them are actually like that up until a little more recently. You get the dual pedals, which we do have on the riding tractor or compact tractor over there. Now this right here is a John Deere Z735M. This is about a 2022 model. This is a zero-turn sit-down mower. Now they do have two different types of zero-turn. They have the zero-turn sit-down, and then they have the zero-turn basically stand-up, where you can either ride behind them or you kind of just lean into them. And generally they work about the same. Just the stand-on units are going to be typically more used commercially for smaller properties because you can very quickly just get on and off them. There's no seat belts or anything typically. These guys right here, you do have to put them in park or neutral with the e-brake on and everything in order to get off. You have to turn the blades off. There's a little bit more work to it, and generally the stand-on ones are going to be better for your back. When you're sitting down absorbing all of the vibration with your seat, it's technically worse for your back, believe it or not. But long story short, 735M, it's a little bit more expensive zero turn, but at the end of the day, it's still a zero turn, and it'll still get the job done in this video the same way that a cheaper one that's around $3 grand from Lowe's will do as well. Now this last one is a John Deere 1025R compact utility tractor, and this one is a 2019 model. Now this one's going to be a little bit more like the riding mower in a sense that you have a steering wheel and you do have a just very simple car-driven system essentially, but this one's a little more modern. It does have a pedal for forwards and a pedal for reverse that are both on the right side. So you can very easily be going forwards, let off the pedal, and then you can be going backwards. Whereas that one, you have a lever that you actually have to move, and I'm not going to lie, that one's actually probably the hardest to drive of both of these. Not that any of them are hard to drive, but that is something that we'll go over. But this one is going to be the most expensive of your units. And so now that we've talked about basically you've gotten acquainted with each one of these, let's go ahead and just do a general overview on what to expect with each of these. And then we're going to actually do some tests to kind of show you guys some of the differences between them. Okay, so now how we're going to do this is we're going to basically go in order. Like I said, this is from least expensive to most expensive. And we're going to kind of go through and just compare each one. I'm going to try to stick to a plan here the best I can, but so we're going to go ahead and start with the riding mower slash lawn tractor. The price point new is typically going to be $1,800 to about $3,000. These are going to be the cheapest of the whole lineup. Now used, they get really cheap. Like I'm talking $500 to about $1,000 for a good running, somewhat newer condition one. So very, very cheap. Now going over here to our zero turn, these guys are going to start at about double the cost. You're usually going to start at about $3,000 and go all the way up to about 10 grand plus for a good zero turn. Like this one here, I think with everything I got on it was close to 10 grand, or it might have been a little more, but this is a Z7, which is pretty much top of the line besides the Z9. Now coming over here, getting an actual lawn tractor that has the hydraulics built in to be able to attach actual implements in a PTO output shaft, which we'll talk about in a minute, you're looking at some really major bucks. We're talking about $15,000 to about $30,000 plus. $15,000 too is about the minimum you're going to see for any new actual compact tractor. And that's not even including typically having a bucket and any back attachments. When you're looking at like an excavator that's already built on, which a lot of them do, with the front bucket, you're usually looking at about a $28,000 starting point. So it can get really expensive. Now, if you're willing to go used, you're looking at about $5,000 to $15,000. Sometimes it's with attachments, sometimes it's without, depending on how old the unit. You got to remember, some of these units are 50 plus years old, people will sell, and they still work great. So just shop around and see how you feel about. Now, in terms of their cutting capability, all of these are equipped to cut lawns. All of them are typically equipped to cut, an acre or more, but obviously people do use these in very small homes as well. I've seen people using these for less than a quarter acre, pretty much all of them really, because they can have multiple uses. Like I've seen people with lawn tractors like that don't even have a quarter acre because they use them for business stuff and they're moving very large things with them and they make money with them. So with this guy right here, you're definitely going to have the least versatility when it comes to cutting. And I know there's going to be people at home who might try to argue with me, but I can promise you, go to any commercial cutting business and they're typically not going to own any of these. They're only going to have zero-turn sitting units and zero-turn standing units, okay? And that is because they're overall faster, they're much more maneuverable, and I mean much, much more maneuverable. They're overall going to come with larger decks as well. Now that brings us over to here. Like I said, this one is going to be the absolute quickest cutting job in almost any circumstance, besides when this comes to shine when using something like a bush hog, which a bush hog is basically a PTO driven or gas engine driven drag behind trailer that literally has like extra mowers built onto it essentially. So those can range anywhere from 72-inch decks all the way up to like 4, 5, 6, 7 feet, and they can have massive blades on them. But that's what they usually use at like farmland and stuff like that, where you're doing 5+ acres. It's typically going to be very flat. You're not going to have a ton of obstacles. That is where something like a lawn tractor or just basically a subcompact utility tractor like this is really going to shine. And yes, you can get bush hogs that are gas powered on the back. So it's basically like pulling a separate mower. Yeah, long story short, you'll want something like this if you have a lot of farmland. So once again, just to reiterate, usually these for the smallest yards, and if you're not expecting to have the quickest cut job, these for the most maneuverability. They can range in all different yard sizes. I use this to cut 5 acres and it works amazing for me, especially because I have lots of hills, I have lots of trees, lots of obstacles. And then this for very large, like usually 5 acre plus with the bush hog. Now in terms of deck sizes, which is going to be basically the cutting capacity, it's usually measured in inches. It's very common sizes. So with these guys, you're going to have the smallest possible deck sizes available. Usually zero turns only go down to about, I'd say like 42 inches on average. Now these guys right here, you can find them in as small as like 28-inch decks, but the usual size you're going to see is 36 to 48. I think this one's a 36, but you can get them up to 60 inches, which is pretty cool because that's about the max you're going to see on either of these too, without going with the bush hog. So I consider this to be the smallest deck size. Now here you're gonna have like the medium/biggest deck size essentially, because this one right here, for example, is a 54-inch deck. You're usually gonna see most of these zero turns with 42-inch to 60-inch decks, and then you're gonna see those with about the same range. Usually those start at around 52 and go up to about 60, sometimes a little bit bigger. And yeah, usually you're not gonna really see bigger on these, but you will see bigger on these. And obviously, like I said, these are bush hog capable. Now these right here are typically going to have the slowest overall top speed. Not that that really matters to a ton of people, but they're going to have the slowest top speed. And in my opinion, between, this lawn tractor and this lawn tractor, they're both going to not have the greatest maneuverability compared to a zero turn, but lawn tractors can typically go 10+ miles an hour. These guys right here, the average top speed you're going to see is usually about 3.5 to 7 miles an hour for most of them, with the average being about 5. Most of them that I've seen are usually about 5 miles an hour, and even slower for reverse. Now your zero turn, this guy right here will do close to 10 miles an hour. It'll do, I think, around 5 in reverse, and it's on the fly going forwards and backwards. So yeah, very, very quick, very, very maneuverable. You can practically drift around corners with these. And like I said, lawn tractors are usually 10+ miles an hour. Now here's where we start to get a little complicated, a little fun. We're going to talk about the versatility. So with a lawn tractor like this, a compact one, you're going to have pretty good versatility for the price, because you can do things like attach snow plows to the front of them. You can also attach things like this garden sprayer, which this is a really cool little sprayer you can use to actually spray like a large path behind you, or it has a wand where I can go and spray like weed killer along the side of the fence, or bug spray, whatever. You can use it for all kinds of things. I can pull trailers with this too. I actually built a hitch on it. Many of them will come with the hitch nowadays, but I have a built-in hitch and I have a built-in eyelet to be able to use small trailers and stuff. But I actually use this thing to pull a 4x8 trailer filled with rocks from time to time. So I'd say upwards of 600 to 800 pounds, which really you should not be doing with this. Technically, you're only supposed to do about half the weight to maybe 3/4 the weight of the actual mower with the rider on it, because you don't want to risk flipping it. But these are really generally pretty good for towing things. You can also use small box graders and other stuff like that with your standard riding mower. Now with your zero turn, you're you're pretty much just a zero turn. I mean, they sometimes, like they usually come with an eyelet or a hitch, and you think, well, okay, that means it's towable. They say they don't recommend doing it. It's not very good for the hydrostats. It often voids your manufacturer warranty, and they really don't recommend pulling much weight at all. I have used this a couple times to like move a car in neutral and stuff like that, and it does do really well. But you know, once again, both of these are just going to be two-wheel rear drive, so they don't have the greatest traction to begin with, and on top of that, they just really aren't, this really is not designed for towing. You really can't do a lot of attachments, if any, on this. We're not even going to talk about attachments because really I'm going to say there's almost none that are worth noting. But on this guy, like I said, very versatile. You can use quite a few attachments, but in terms of what is the most versatile is definitely going to be your actual lawn tractor or subcompact tractor, because they have an actual hydraulic system in them. So you can obviously have something like this 120R, which actually has a So you can obviously have something like this 120R attachment, which I believe is a 60-inch bucket that has full range of motion. It's basically like a front-end loader. You can use it to, I've used it to dig. I actually dug a whole pond back there. I've also used it to move large rock. I've used it to move mulch. I've used it to move gravel. I've also used it for grading. You can actually use, it has like a float mode where you can put it all the way down and it basically just helps grade dirt or gravel for you. I have hooks in the front of it in order to help with pulling stuff out. Now this is four-wheel drive too, and this is the only one in this whole roundup that's going to be four-wheel drive, and typically the only one you're going to see four-wheel drive. This one is a 3-cylinder diesel. So I actually have a post hole digger attached to the back right now. So right now I'm very utilized at this thing. I have a 60-inch deck for mowing that has 3 blades. I have a bucket in the front, and I have a post hole digger in the back. And let's not forget the bush hog attachment, and also you can use grading attachments and you can use tiller attachments. The list goes on for days for the actual full-size riding tractors. Now, one thing you might be wondering is, what about weight? Well, as far as weight goes, we do actually have them in order of weight, funny enough. And you're going to notice that generally lawn mowers, this riding mowers, they're going to weigh the least. Usually you're looking at about 350 to 600 pounds, and they're typically always just two-wheel, rear-wheel drive. The engines are almost always going to be in the front, though, so you generally don't get like a ton of weight where the actual tires are, so the traction's not always amazing, but it's not bad. Now, for your zero turn, this one right here, for example, weighs around 1,000 pounds, it's like 950, but you're usually looking at about 400 to 950 in terms of the weight. You have almost all the weight in the back because your engine's back there and a lot of your weight's going to be back there. So these generally have really good traction. It's pretty rare that I'm really sliding around with them. But yeah, they can get, you know, over 1,000 pounds, while your usually riding mowers will stay under 1,000. And as far as the compact tractors go, you're pretty much always looking over 1,000 pounds. Like this guy right here, I estimate with all the attachments and stuff is probably close to 2,000, but you're usually looking at about 1,500 plus pounds in terms of weight. But on top of that, you are getting four-wheel and two-wheel drive. So you have the option to put it in and out, and this one by far has the best traction of both of these. Now, the last point I'm going to make before we start kind of just demoing these is the overall maintenance. So when it comes to your zero turn and your standard riding mower, they're going to have pretty general maintenance. They both just really need oil changes every year or every so many hours, and they do typically have air filters that need to be changed usually around the same time, and then you usually will do the spark plug as well. They usually just sell maintenance kits, and they call them like their 30-second oil changes on most of the newer John Deere, most of the newer, even other brands out there. They're all about, hey, let's let you do maintenance at home, let it be real easy and cheap. So yeah, usually I'd say about an hour or so for like the whole entire maintenance on these guys. Now with a riding tractor like this, you got to remember you have a lot of hydraulics, you have a lot of Zerk fittings that you need to grease and stuff like this one. If I had to guess, I don't even want to know, honestly, because I have not done it yet, but it probably has over 20 fittings that I have to find on this thing and grease. It has a lot of different fluids running through it. This one is water cooled, so you know, you actually do have a little bit more going on than just like these air cooled engines. So yeah, you definitely have a lot more going on here in terms of maintenance. It's going to cost the most. It's going to be a little more hard and a little more tedious, but at the same time, it's just like owning a car pretty much with something like this. So I wouldn't say it's too bad. So now that we've kind of talked about all the differences, and hopefully that kind of makes sense. So what we're going to do is like a quick obstacle course, if you will. I'm just going to leave anything that's attached on these already, but basically we're just going to take the cheapest and simplest unit first, and I'm just going to take it for a quick drive, and I'm just going to mimic exactly what I did with the zero turn here, I'm just gonna go full speed with no mower going, because the speed really isn't affected much by the blades being on. So, and also I don't have any earplugs and I don't really feel like getting any. I do recommend wearing earplugs to pretty much all of these when you're using the decks, because they can get really loud. They definitely run louder than a standard push mower. So let's go ahead and give it a test. One thing I do love about this thing, by the way, is the freaking idle. Just listen to how smooth and low this thing idles. That's definitely something you do miss out on with the zero turn, is the idle on these really only goes so low. So they're generally pretty noisy even at idle. I'm interested to see on the actual timer how much quicker that was, but yeah, that felt a lot quicker. Now, this one's gonna be a little bit of a challenge because I'm a crap ton longer. I'm probably double the length of both of these units, but I still think we're gonna be a little bit quicker on this guy than we were this one, just because this one has a very quick top speed. But let's just see if I can even fit through that one spot where I kind of ring it around, and yeah, let's go from there. Yeah, that one was a little, that one was rough just trying to get through that, that one tight spot. Obviously, if I didn't have the implements on, this would have been a lot quicker, but hey, who's really buying one of these if they're not gonna have some stuff attached to it? Yeah, I mean, I hope that part was pretty simple and self-explanatory. Long story short, zero turn definitely comes out on top in terms of speed, and in all honesty, that guy, just because of how small it is probably going to really beat out this in any type of obstacles, especially if they're close together. But if it's a really large farm and you have a couple trees here and there, that obviously neither of these are really going to be quicker. This is still going to be the quickest, even if you have to turn around once or twice. All right, guys, well, we just drove these units around real quick, just did like a little obstacle course just to show you guys how quick each one can go or how slow each one is. And yeah, I mean, the moral of the story is, if you're doing any type of lawn cutting and you're willing to spend a little bit of money, I almost always think that these zero turns come out on top. But obviously, if you're looking to not spend a lot of money and you want something that can do more than just cut the grass, then go with a standard riding mower like this one, because you can actually attach things to it and use it to pull trailers and stuff like that. And then if you're going for the ultimate unit, where you might even be wanting to make some money on the side with this, you need to move some rock, gravel, you're also using it to cut your lawn, you're using it to, you know, do fence post digging and tilling and stuff like that, then obviously buying an actual tractor, subcompact tractor, is definitely going to be your best bet. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure you check out Toasty Bros and Toasty Clips. And also, guys, if you want more coverage of each of these, on this channel, Toasty DIY, we do have videos on how to do service and maintenance on both of these. Pretty soon we'll have one on this as well. And on top of that, there's videos like how to actually ride a zero turn and stuff like that, and you know, kind of the other uses I found with this John Deere. And I also usually do reviews on all the attachments that I buy, such as that sprayer and stuff like that. So make sure you guys check out Toasty DIY. See you guys in the next one. Peace out.